Hello, 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 everyone. My name is DeShauna Barber, and I am Miss USA 2016. On June 5th, 2016, I was crowned the very first soldier to ever win the prestigious crown of Miss USA. And I am so incredibly excited to be here with you all for Universe United. So let's dive right in. Welcome to Universe United, a conversation series that brings our community from across the globe together. We're here today to honor our beloved friend and sister, Cheslie Kryst, to remember and celebrate who she was, as well as what she stood for and was passionate about. We look to you, our audience, to join us on these courageous conversations with experts to help us all understand this world a little better and help some organizations along the way. Let's all be here for one another and spread some of the positivity Cheslie did. So let's start off with how it is that I know Cheslie. I knew Cheslie because she was a former Miss USA, and we built up a amazing relationship because she transitioned into motivational speaking after her time as Miss USA. Me and her both worked under the same speakers bureau, and we did a lot of just back and forth with our notes, a lot of that experience that we understood when it came to the speaking world, because that's what I do professionally. And it was really awesome to be able to share that space with her. We are the only two Miss USAs under that speakers bureau, and it was just really awesome to be able to see her thrive. I had my own experience when it came to loss when my mother passed away during my time as Miss USA, actually. Only 3 months into winning Miss USA, I lost my mother to lung cancer. And I had to deal firsthand with what it felt like to experience depression, what it felt like to experience grief. And I really struggled during Miss USA. You all probably didn't notice because I think I did a really great job at hiding that mental and emotional stress that I was experiencing from being in the spotlight while also grieving my mother. And grief is an interesting experience because it's so consistent. There's never a day where I don't feel the pain of that loss. And I think that as we all are experiencing the loss of an amazing queen, it brings me back to some of the things that I did to try to help me get through the grief of the loss of my mother. So if I could provide you all any advice, um, to kind of uplift you through this process, is to say we all have to cherish each other. We all have to cherish the loved ones around us. And we all have to do a better job at uplifting each other. There's one thing that we can all experience and understand together, which is that we all know what it feels like to not be liked. We all know what it feels like to have people say negative things to us. We all know what that frustration feels like. So, what can we do not to be that person spewing that negativity against others? What I try to do is I try to remember that everyone's going through something. None of us are immune from bad experiences. So everything that I do is based in making sure that I walk into the world doing the best that I can to be an amazing person and to be a good person. So I really hope that as you all continue to walk and operate in the world, that your focus should be on how you can be a positive addition to your community and to society in general. What can we do to sustain our happiness through hardships? We can first realize that hardships are something that's common. It's something that we're going to experience in life no matter what. Hurdles is something we're always going to have to deal with. So how do we sustain our own happiness? It's looking at the positive side of everything. Everything that I go through, I find the positive. One thing that I knew when I was experiencing my own grief with my mother, it's hard to find positivity in losing your mom, obviously. But I do know that it made me realize just how fragile life is. And I used that pain and that experience to change me. And now I really value my relationships more. I focus my best on being as kind as possible. I speak a lot as a motivational speaker on how to overcome trauma. And I try my best when I'm speaking to talk about my mom and to make sure that her memory lives on through my speeches. And I inspire people with her memory. And usually after speeches, I have people that walk up to me and they say, wow, you know, your mom reminds me of my mother, and I'm going to call her today and I'm going to do a better job at building a relationship with her, or whatever the case may be with different loved ones. I've had people walk up to me and say, you know, a bunch of different things where they're going to make life changes. So I like to use her memory as a way to share with other people how to not feel regret after loss, because that's one thing that I know is very common. We wonder, should I have called more? Should I have said more? Was there something more that I could have done? And all that we can do is not focus on the past, but rather focus on how we can be better people in the future. What can we do to appreciate the people to our left and our right? We can speak kindness and positivity into them every day. Every time I speak to my best friend or close family members, I am always speaking life into them. I take it very seriously that I speak life into them. And I feel like as a pageant community, I don't know if we've done a great job at speaking life into our queens. As a former Miss USA that dealt with high levels of social media bullying and cyberbullying, I know what it feels like to not be appreciated by everyone in this community. And I didn't take offense to it because I know that I may not have been, or that when queens are crowned, they may not have been your first choice, and that's fine. But the crown is on someone's head and you have to respect that. And cyberbullying is never okay. Catriona said something along the lines of how we have to really separate critiquing versus bullying. Sometimes we cover up the bullying as, I'm just saying my opinion. And there's a way to say your opinion without damaging the self-esteem of the women that have the honor of being able to wear the crown. So there have been queens that I'm like, I'm going for this person and this person doesn't win, but that doesn't mean that this person didn't deserve to win. And I do the best that I can to remember that when it comes to women that are able to wear the sash and the crown. So as a pageant community, let's do better. Let's challenge ourselves to make sure that this space is all about uplifting each other. And I really believe that we can do that. I know that we can do that. I believe in each and every one of you. And I believe that this community is a beautiful space if only we can make sure that it maintains that space as a beauty, as a uplifting opportunity. When women walk into it, they walk out feeling great and not necessarily feeling worse than when they first got the crown. I know we can do better. I know we can. And I'm excited to see those changes. So let's move on to our guest. I want to introduce to you all the president and CEO of Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. It is the largest and most experienced youth mentoring organization in the United States. The mission of Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America is to create and support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of the youth. Hi, Artis Stevens. Hello,
Hey,
everyone.
how you
Tell
doing,
them
DeShauna?
hello,
Thank you for having
hello.
me on.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. We're so excited to have you here because one, you're a big deal because Big Brothers Big Sisters is such a huge organization. I have seen it all around. I didn't have the honor of being a part of it when I was a young kid, but I know a lot of people that have been a part of that program. Even during some of my sorority years in undergraduate school, we used to volunteer with Big Brothers Big Sisters. So it's so great to be able to have you here, and I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
organization.
Yeah, happy to do that. And first, let me just say how much I appreciate you sharing your story, how much I appreciate your vulnerability, and how much I appreciate everything you stand for. It
Thank you.
means so much to hear you, to see you, what you represent. So I just want to continue to give love to you and to everyone watching, just how you represent DeShauna. So much love, first and foremost.
Thank you, Artis. I appreciate that. It's so
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. Here's the deal. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the first Black CEO of Big
Wow.
Brothers Big Sisters of America. This 117-year history, and I say that with pride because I know that I didn't get here by myself. I got here. I was part of a large family, the youngest in a large family. I grew up in the South. I faced all the challenges of growing up in a family that my mom and dad would always say we didn't have a lot of means, but we were rich in relationships, and that currency is sort of what we use to really drive and connect in our lives. I was the first in my family to go to college and graduate. If there's any University of Georgia people on, go Bulldogs, by the way. And I had the support of mentors, right? People in my life, and they all didn't look like me. They were not all related to me, but I had a community that supported me and that encouraged me to be the best that I could. And I'll tell you this, right? How I got to this organization, this incredible organization that I've been in youth development and supporting young people and building relationships and mentorship throughout my entire career. My dad was a preacher. My granddad was a preacher. And my dad always told me to follow my own ministry in life. And what I will tell you is the way that I got here is I was from a small town called Brunswick, Georgia. And many people may not have heard of that until recently. And the reason why most people may have heard of the town Brunswick, Georgia, is because of a person and a young man named Ahmaud Arbery, who was
Yes.
murdered on the street in Brunswick, Georgia. That was my hometown. And it was when that happened that I really took the time to step back in my life and say, was not if I was following the right ministry like my dad told me to do, but if I was doing enough. And what I learned then was I had to contribute more. I needed to do more. And it wasn't too long after that Big Brothers Big Sisters came knocking, and I saw myself in this organization. It was like looking in a mirror. And when you look at the kids that we serve, 71% come from communities of color. 60% are in single family households. 55% live in poverty. 25% have a parent that's incarcerated or in parole. And in no way does any of those statistics define who they are. But what often does define who they are is access to resources, opportunities, and relationships. And that's why this organization is so important. That's why the work that we do, and that's why volunteers who support our organization and create one-to-one mentoring relationships with kids every single day make the difference. And I'm proud to lead the organization.
That's amazing. It sounds like an awesome organization, and it's made huge impacts on even close friends that I have. So it's even more amazing to hear that, my late friend and our late friend, Cheslie Kryst, was also someone that supported this organization. Can you tell us a little bit about her involvement in
Yeah,
Big Brothers Big Sisters?
Cheslie was so amazing. As you know, DeShauna, like this is the thing about Cheslie. Anything she put her heart into, she went all in, right? And she was one of our most committed and dynamic board members. So she served on our board. She actually served on the national board, but she also served on our local board in Charlotte, North Carolina as well.
Wow.
So she was playing double duty of our local board as well as serving on our national board. She helped to create and architect one of our most strategic initiatives, which we call the Jedi Council, and it stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And if you know Cheslie, you know that she was all about ensuring equity for communities and equity for kids and creating opportunities. She was the architect behind it, helped to build it, was our first co-chair of launching that to help us to support strategies and reaching communities who needed us most. And she was a spokesperson and an ambassador. And what many people don't know is how caring she was in terms of showing up, being present, engaged in relationships and partnerships, like a big national relationship we had with Express. But here's what I'll tell you most important, and hopefully that will answer this question for everyone who's watching and listening, that Cheslie was the first person. You talked about loss in your life. Cheslie was the first person. When I started the job as CEO last year in January, my first week on the job, I lost my dad suddenly. He passed away suddenly. And I was devastated. Cheslie was one of the first people to call me. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me and how she uplifted me during that moment. And that relationship just continued to grow. And it became not just my board member, not just my ambassador, but she became my friend. Right. And 6 months to that day when my dad passed, my brother passed away as well. And again, she was there. She was a cornerstone. And having someone who could relate and say, I understand what it feels like to be in the limelight, to have to show the face, to feel like you're having to be everything for everyone, but also to understand what's going on inside and the pain that you're feeling. And the sense of being able to share with someone that could relate in that way and that can understand meant the world to me. So when we talk about Cheslie Kryst, I talk about Cheslie from a lot of different levels, but the most important one for me is the person that she was and the legacy that she leaves and the friend that she was to me.
And I think that's one great thing, or I mean, it's one of many great things that we can take away, really from her legacy, like you mentioned, is what it feels like to be a person that just loves, a person
Yeah.
that gives, a person that is so incredibly caring and selfless and empathetic. Like it's all these things, and we can all only pray to scratch the surface of who she was as a character within ourselves. Like, what can we do to become better people? So I love everything that you're saying, and I'm so sorry to hear about your father and your brother. Obviously, with what I was saying about losing a parent, it is difficult, and I can't even imagine a sibling. So it's one of those things where, well, you had mentioned, we were chatting before we went live about the three G's. Can you tell them what the three G's are?
Yeah, it's something that my dad used to preach about. I mentioned my dad was a preacher, and it always stuck with me. And it was this idea of grief, gratitude, and grit, right? And the
Yes.
idea, and you said it so beautifully, this idea of being able to deal with grief and to understand that dealing with grief, it's okay to not be okay. I think that's one thing, right? And you don't have to poise and position yourself to be the solver, the challenges, or to think that everything's going to be a solution overnight, but it's okay to be okay. And it's also okay to know that you're not in this alone, that we're all here and we're connected. And human connection is so important to have in any time in your life, but particularly when you deal with grief. The other sense was gratitude. And for me, gratitude is really about being thankful for every experience that I had with my dad, every experience that I had with my brother. And those experiences are the fuel that help me to continue on, right? That gives me the support, right? That I know that I had those moments that I laughed, that I cried, that we had fun together, that we argued as well. But all those things are part of who I am, and they reflect, how I live my life today. And then the last one is the grit. And grit is really about that ammunition to carry on, right? The
Yeah.
fuel that allows you the resilience to know that even in the hardest times, and it will be hard times, right? It will be tough. And I know some days I'm up here and some days I am so low, but I know that they're with me, right? And that grit for me is what sort of continues to carry and to say, you know what? I've been through hard times. My dad was through hard times. My brother was through hard times. They're here and they walk with me to be able to get through anything in my life and to continue to thrive and to continue to be successful in life and to be compassionate and to give to others.
I love that. And I love that you're saying that they walk with me through life. I think that that's especially something that we all need to take away when it comes to loss, is the fact that our loved ones are always by our side through everything.
Right.
So thank you so much for that. I have a few questions for you
Mhm.
before we head over to fan questions. The first thing is, what programs and services can Big Brother, Big Sister provide to support mental health with its participants?
Yeah, we do a lot of programming. So, we are in 5,000 communities all across the country. We specialize in one-to-one mentoring, but we do a lot of different types of mentoring experiences. What's at core of what we do, though, is building a relationship, a positive relationship, a safe relationship where a young person can feel like they belong. They can feel like they're included. And that's one thing I love about this program. And no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, no matter how you identify, no matter what the sense of where you may have grown up or where you may be now, there's a place for you in this community. And what's so powerful is about is because even when we connect from a mentoring standpoint, we're trying to make matches. That's what we call matches between
Mm.
a big, who's a positive adult, and a little, who's our young person. And we serve 5 to 18, but we also are now serving young people 18 to 25, young adults, I should say,
Mm.
because more young people are saying, I want experiences that help me to find careers and to find opportunities as well. That's one of our fastest growing population. But what makes it work, DeShauna, is that mentoring for us is about reciprocal relationships.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not coming in to save a kid. What you're doing is you're empowering the young person in their voice and their action, but that young person is empowering you just as much. And that's what we hear from the volunteers and the adults. And we try to create the safest spaces for the young people to grow and develop, but also connecting with their families and their parents, because we know we can't do this alone. Really takes a community and a village to raise kids. And we believe in that. And that's how our concepts and our model really supports development of young people through volunteers, through parents, through community partners, as well as through the incredible staff who helps us to operate and run every single day.
That's incredible. I mean, honestly, oftentimes that's what we're missing growing up, especially for those that are in, poverty-stricken areas, those that are, low-income families, or they're not in the greatest area, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you just need to see it to believe it.
That's
And
right.
oftentimes our communities can kind of be somewhat of a bottleneck of opportunity because we don't really see people doing other things. So there's a level of hope in being able to see people doing amazing things from, the outside world, that exposure. So I think that that's incredible. And I love the concept that you all have as an organization.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, how can trauma that we experience as children and young people affect us?
Yeah, well, I think it's you see it so obviously that, like any type of scar, right?
Yeah.
That whether you're talking about physical scar, that the deepest scars are the emotional ones, the mental ones that we face, and those scars can last for us forever. And by the way, I don't profess to be a mental health expert here, but what I can say is just from the POV of being in a field that's helped young people develop and throughout their entire cycle of life, we've seen it from the standpoint of where a young person is affected and go through serious trauma to where they end up in life. And that can have really adverse effects on their ability to be able to empathize, to communicate, their choices and their supports. But here's what I'll tell you. I'm going to probably turn that question a little bit. Here's what we know when they have the supportive environments that they need, that they're more strong and resilient in their choices, right?
Yes.
They have this sense of belonging, and the sense of belonging not only to themselves, but to their family and to their broader community in terms of contributing. They have this sense of resilience. And you talked about something which we talk about a lot, this idea of what happens when people are bullied, whether it's online or it's in school or it's in environmental in ways, even sometimes in family, right? That can have some really traumatic effect on people, no matter who you are, because we all say it doesn't matter. It does matter, right? It does matter what people say and what they communicate, right? So part of what we try to do is ensure that we are, when coaching and teaching young people about the way that they act, the way that they communicate, but also how they respond to challenge, right? How they respond to when things happen, because things are going to happen to us. So much as how do we respond in the environment, and can we seek the support that we need to ensure that we're being as developmentally successful. And then one other thing I'll say to this is that for every match that we have of a young person, it's also talking to that adult, right? Because this ain't all about just developing young people. We got to develop adults in this work as well. So we spend a lot of time coaching, training volunteers, adults about cultural sensitivity, about understanding people that are different than you. And what does that mean? A lot of our work is allyship. So we have a lot of matches who come from different backgrounds. If you don't understand the community and the background that you're walking into, then that doesn't help the young person. That doesn't help you. That doesn't help us to be successful. So there's a lot of building of bonds and connections that we have to do. And then the last thing I'll say is the sense of voice, right? One of the biggest things that I believe, and I think it's important for our country, is ensuring that young people have voice and they have seat at the table, and that their thoughts, their actions, their perspectives and POVs can be well received and actionable. And by the way, they can do a lot, because we've seen most of the movements that happen in our country, whether it's civil rights, whether it's what we've seen in the streets in terms of racial injustice, were led and started by young people. That's the kind of organization that Big Brothers Big Sisters is about. We're about empowering youth voice and empowering young people to be able to ensure that they can take action, not just for tomorrow, but they can take action today.
That's incredible. And I mean, every single generation they get more and more unafraid to speak up,
That's right.
say how they feel, especially with social media. They make sure that their voices are heard. So it's definitely a very powerful generation that we're growing and we're uplifting and we're bringing into society. So it's great that you all are a part of that process. I want to pass it over to really be able to bring in, some of our viewers. If there are any questions, kind of type them into the YouTube chat, and we'll try to get around to a few questions that we want to answer, because we want to make sure that we're able to engage with you all. We're able to give you, some of that feedback when it comes to questions that you all may have. So feel free. Okay, here's one from Anna Burke. DeShauna, as a public figure, how do you handle negative comments online? I am a big believer in the block button. So I block people. Um, I literally looked at my block list the other day, and it's probably about at least 600 people. This dates back to when I became Miss USA. So how do I handle it? I don't allow it on my platform. And I would highly recommend that if you are someone that's experiencing people on your social media platform that are saying negative comments to you, they have already proven that they do not deserve access to you, and they do not deserve access to your social media platforms and being able to see, what it is that you're doing. When we're offering ourselves as public figures, we're giving people really a window into being able to see our lives and experience our lives with us. And as soon as they show me that they're not being respectful of me, I immediately block people. So that's absolutely 100% how I handle negative comments online. I don't allow them, and I block people. Thank you so much, Anna, for that question. Let's see if we can get in a few more. Any other questions other than Anna Burke's question? Oh, everyone's like, oh, DeShauna blocks people. Yeah. They'll go through and they'll search me on Instagram and they can't find me anymore. It's because you're blocked. You
do what you got to do. That's the way I say.
Have to. We are way too, what's the word? We freely allow people to be able to access us, even when they prove that they don't deserve it. So we really have to be better about that. Hi, DeShauna. This is from Benjamin Guzman. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hi, DeShauna. As a military and as Miss USA, you were part of your family for many times. Do you ever regret that? As a military and Miss USA, you were apart from your family. Oh, I was apart from my family. Do I ever regret that? I don't know if I regret doing those two things, because it's a dream of mine to serve in the military. My father, mother, sister, and brother and stepmother are all Army veterans. So it's a tradition in my family to serve this country in some capacity. And it just so happens that we all chose to join the Army. And Miss USA was a dream of mine too. So I don't regret chasing my dreams. That's something I will never regret. But I do regret moments when I could have gone and seen my mom more often, or I could have gone and seen some loved ones that are no longer with me. There were opportunities in there where I could have made time and I chose not to, because of my own maybe selfish reasons. But you learn, you grow, and you become better people. So the best thing that we can do is not settle too much in the past. Don't spend too much time there. Just take the lesson that you learned and move on and determine how you can do better in the future. So I have my regrets, and majority of them are not taking the opportunities that I should have taken. But best believe, any opportunity I have to go to a family reunion, I have to go and see my family, my friends, like I make sure that I take advantage of those opportunities, because you just never know what tomorrow may bring. So thank you so much, Benjamin, for that question. Let's see if we can get one or two more in this 2-minute timeline. Anna Burke, thank you so much. Artis, what is the best way to get involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters of America?
Oh, thank you, Anna, for the question. So you can go to our website, actually, at bbbs.org. Again, that's bbbs.org. And there's a couple different things you can do. If you're interested in giving your time and you want to volunteer to a local agency, that's what we call our local operators. If you want to get involved, all you have to do is put your zip code in, and it'll pull up the closest local Big Brothers, Big Sisters that's in your community. However, if you want to also give and support, you can donate and give of your financial support to ensure that more matches. We got 30,000 kids right now, 30,000 on our waiting list. Kids who are waiting to be matched. And a lot of that's just because of capacity needs and resources. So our local folks need to have the kind of resources that help them to recruit volunteers and bring volunteers. So we need people, and we also need investment to help support our programs and growth. And then the last thing I would say is just your voice. advocating and telling stories of the important work of mentorship and impact. So the more that you can share about our work, but also if it's not us, and it's another great organization in your community that does mentorship, share about them as well, because it's about the bigger family here in terms of ensuring that kids are supported.
I love that word that you used, Artis, and I think that it's a good way to close out this amazing conversation is the word family. Pageant community. We have been through it these past month and some change. This has really reshaped and shifted who we are as a community, and I really do hope that we take this experience and we use it as fuel to be able to drive us to become a better community and to become better people. So I want to take the time to thank you all for being able to join this live. And I especially want to thank Artis for being with us. Again, if you'd like to learn more about Big Brothers, Big Sisters, please go to bbbs.org and follow their social accounts or donate financially with your time or with your money. Thank you to everyone in our community. Thank you for your care and your support during this time. I know it's been rough, but hang in there, everyone. And this series is a way for us to show up for you. And we hope you will join us again next time. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one.
Thank you, DeShauna.
Thank you, Artis.